Indeed. And in the studio with us is the commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Insurance. That's Commissioner Mike Chaney. Thanks for coming in today.
Always a pleasure, Gerard.
Yes, sir. All right. So what's going on in your world these days? I know you wrote an article here recently about this potential global minimum tax that, 126 countries, I think, have now signed on to. Our treasurer, Janet Yellen, fully supports it. This would require a law to be passed in the United States Congress, signed by the president, to enter into an agreement. But I think a lot of folks would be surprised to find out how this might impact insurance and insurance premiums. Tell us about that.
So here's the deal. R Street, which is a nonpartisan research institute, found that there's a hidden hurricane tax, and we kind of suspected this was going on. We just had to dig it out. Under the Biden administration, Pelosi backed plan on Build Back Better. That's the tax proposal. And the bottom line is that they said we're going to only tax those that earn over $400 million a year. 400,000, not 400 million. That would include you at that point, Gerard.
Yeah, exactly.
Not Rhino, but maybe you. I don't know. Here we are. We already got off on a rabbit trail. We hadn't got started out this morning.
That's
so
right.
$400,000 a year. So when you dig down into it, there's this unintentional consequence,
Sure.
and that consequence is we're going to tax the reinsurance people in Bermuda. So here's the President of the United States and the Congress through Pelosi trying to raise a tax for a foreign entity against the American people. How in the heck can you do that? So here's the bottom line for us. When you sit down and look at what that tax will do to Mississippi and to the taxpayers of Mississippi and everybody that has a homeowner's policy, it will raise about $100 million to as much as $200 million in taxes that goes to another entity. Not any of it stays in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And how does that work? It works this way. When insurance companies have risk, they sell that risk off to reinsurers. Most of the reinsurers are located in England through Lloyd's Group or in the Bermuda area because they're a tax haven for companies. They don't have to pay high taxes, and that's where the capital's located. So you sell off part of your risk. We do that through the wind pool in the state of Mississippi to keep rates low on the Gulf Coast.
Okay.
You reinsure your loss, okay? So what happens here, even in the building we're in, this is Farm Bureau's building where SuperTalk's located, and I ran into Jerry Keaton a few minutes ago, and he'll have to have a conversation about this. They buy, say, $500 million of reinsurance every year.
Okay.
So this is an 18 to 24% increase in their cost of reinsurance. And who does that get passed on to? To the homeowner.
Sure.
Of course, my deal is I'll probably be blamed for it, whether it's my fault or not. That just goes with the territory. So that's the bottom line. So the Bermuda reinsurance people have paid out about somewhere over $20 billion after Katrina, just on the Gulf Coast. When you look at the dollars they paid out since 2004, just looking at the monies that are paid out, about $400 million. All of this is documented. It's not we're not making our own facts up. This is documented. So What I have done is I wrote an op-ed, released it on the 20th of October, and asked our congressional delegation to try to pull this tax out and not have a global tax that goes to some other country.
Okay.
And even Bermuda says, you know what we'll do with the money? We'll probably pave our roads in Bermuda. You know, the only crop they have there, Gerard, is onions. I don't know if you've been there.
Didn't know that.
I went to Bermuda years ago to look at the reinsurance thing, and I never. My wife said, "You really worked hard." I saw 22 companies in one day. That's hard to do. And I said, "Well, honey, let's go eat." We found out the only thing on the menu was onions because that's all they grew. That's another story.
Gotcha.
So what we're concerned with is the cost of reinsurance will go up. And that, in turn, will raise the cost. It's not just the Gulf Coast now. This is across the board. It'll affect people in the Delta. It doesn't matter about your income. If you have homeowners insurance, it's going to cost you. And we've got a little over somewhere close to 600,000 homeowners that have homeowner policies in the state. And you put renters in, it affects them too. And to do the math, just say you had 500,000 and the rates went up at a minimum of $200 a person. You know, that's $100 million. That's
Sure.
a minimum. So
Sure.
that's what we're looking at.
Well, you know, I don't know how you feel about this, Commissioner, but I don't agree that the United States should just, to some extent, I believe, cede its sovereignty.
You asked me how I feel. I'm outraged that they would do that.
About the idea of ceding sovereignty in terms of joining a pact for a minimum income tax, corporate income tax. I just completely oppose that.
You and I both do.
Okay. Well, I wasn't confused. I just wanted you to say that on the record there.
I should have let you finish, Gerard.
That's all right.
I can't believe, we pay enough tax. The problem is not the debt ceiling. The problem is trying to control the spending of money. And the dollars that we're looking at now coming out of Washington for all of these free things that we're giving away are going to have to be paid for by my grandchildren and yours and everybody else's.
Yeah. It's a disgrace in my view, but there doesn't. Of course, they keep telling us it doesn't cost anything. It's not going to cost anything, is what they say, but it's nuts. All right, well that's interesting. I didn't realize that the reinsurers, which makes sense, are in Bermuda or perhaps in UK. And I suspect a lot of that is because of the UK's relationship with Bermuda, I would think, is why you got a lot of those companies there.
Well, that's one of the reasons, but you've got to understand that there's a huge, used to be a transatlantic cable, and it went through Bermuda across to Europe. So Bermuda was right in the center point for knowing all the transmission of information. That was before the Internet came about. And now they ended up being a place where reinsurance could be bought worldwide. And London has always been a center of reinsurance.
That's right.
That goes back for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And insurance is not something new. People used to sell insurance. Even Egyptian caravans had insurance.
Yeah.
It's not new.
Yep.
It's not new. It's been around a long time. And most of the reinsurance in the world comes through London or through the Bermuda group. So it's pretty simple. And we have an association in the States called RAA, which is a Reinsurance Association of America. And they are very concerned because that next thing that will happen, there'll be another 5% tax that's already proposed to go on the reinsurance here in the United States. Now, Gerard, let me so the listeners want to know, what am I doing about this in case we can't kill it?
Okay.
So we're already looking at alternate plans yesterday with some other commissioners. What will we do if this passes? How will we address the reinsurance issue, and where will we go? And we think we can get those companies to move to another domicile so the tax has not affected them, let's say if they move to the U.S. Virgin Islands or to Puerto Rico or wherever. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
right, so
I totally get it.
That's kind of what we're trying to do.
And I appreciate your efforts to try to work around that. I think that's just one of the many negative consequences of entering into this agreement, a global agreement to set up a minimum corporate tax, minimum company tax. Business tax. I totally oppose that. All right, so other stuff that's going on in your world is right now we've got some enhanced subsidies in the Obamacare exchanges as a result of legislation passed under the Biden administration. I think that's set to expire here pretty soon, but this Build Back Better plan seeks to make that permanent. That's one aspect. And the other big aspect would essentially enact Medicaid expansion in the states that haven't expanded, Mississippi being one of them.
There are 12 states that have not expanded Medicaid, and the Build Back Better plan would expand Medicaid in those 12 states. And the way they're going to do it to make it legal is they're going to issue a policy on the federal exchange. We call it the FFM or the ACE Affordable Care Act, Federal Facilitated Marketplace. It's got many names, but essentially it's Obamacare, as you call it, or Biden care now. And what will happen is if you are 138% of property level or down to zero, you will be able to get a policy free. It will have the same benefits that you have under existing Medicaid plan. And you would probably add about 250,000 people to the Medicaid rolls in the state.
We're up against the break. You want to hang around and talk more about that?
Be happy to.
We got Insurance Commissioner Mike Chaney in the studio. Stay with us. Middays will be right back. Our guest in the studio, of course, is Insurance Commissioner Mike Chaney. So we were just talking before the break, Commissioner, about the possible changes that could occur in your world of insurance with respect to the Build Back Better plan, one of those being Medicaid expansion, but it's not necessarily expanding the Medicaid program, but extending insurance through the Obamacare, the ACA exchanges, correct?
That's
to
correct.
those who would otherwise qualify under so-called Medicaid expansion.
So the Obama administration had put into law that you couldn't expand Medicaid unless you use the existing Medicaid format.
Right.
The law is pretty clear about what you can and can't do. So the Biden administration, Pelosi, have said that we're going to fix that. We're going to put into the Build Back Better plan the ability to expand Medicaid in the 12 states that did not expand Medicaid by putting an insurance policy on the federally facilitated marketplace. And if you're a state-based exchange, which we're not,
right,
you could put it on state-based exchange. And that responsibility would come to the insurance commissioner. So you can understand I have some answers, I guess that's the right word that you would use about what's going to happen. But it might be a format for where we ought to be going with Medicaid down the line to kind of privatize it.
I'm all for it.
And then you have a cost control because every year when Medicaid needs more money, and thank goodness we hadn't had a lot of that in the last couple of years. Thanks to Drew's done a good job.
Done a great job.
And when you have that money coming out, it comes out of somebody else's budget. It used to come out, a lot of it came out of mine. And when you look at the agencies, we constitute less than 20% of the budget, and we're the ones that get cut because everything else is fixed.
Yeah.
Education, et cetera.
Yeah.
So this is a good way to control spending.
Okay.
If that's actually going to happen. So from what I saw this morning, and I looked at it at 5:30 this morning, it's still in the plan.
Yep, it is.
So, and you keep up with it just like I do, I'm sure.
Medicare, too, the additional benefits of Medicare.
Medicare.
Still in there.
And we got to watch Medicare because you and I have paid since 1965 a percent of our income into a plan. It's called the Medicare Trust Fund, and those funds are being rated today. And if it gets rated, people, when you turn 65, may end up with zero on their Medicare side.
It's in way worse economic shape than Social Security is. And the trust fund's scheduled to run out of money in about 3 years.
And what the public needs to know is 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it was in excellent shape. It was in the best shape of any program in Washington.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you let politicians start trying to spend your money in the name of doing good when that doesn't happen.
So the thing about Medicaid expansion and possibly accomplishing the same result through the ACA exchanges, which is what is proposed in the Build Back Better plan, that I've never understood, Commissioner. Maybe you can help me out with this. So presently, an individual whose income is greater than 100% of the federal poverty level, and the exchanges cover folks up to 400% of the federal poverty level. They are entitled to certain levels of subsidies, and they phase out with income. All right, so someone with a household income of greater than 100%, less than 138, which is what expansion would cover, Medicaid expansion would cover. What's the problem with them procuring insurance through the exchanges? It just seems like what they want is to send them to Medicaid, which is zero cost to them, rather than bearing a very nominal cost, maybe 2%, 2.5% of their income. What's the deal there?
Well, the deal is the law prohibits you from charging for
I got you.
It's just that simple.
No, I understand, but what?
But now that's not true under the new act that they're proposing.
I know, but what I'm saying is, why are there such strong support, certainly from the left, for Medicaid expansion when those people currently do have an opportunity to buy insurance at an extremely low price in the exchanges? And it's better insurance, better coverage.
It's better coverage, but here's the kicker. If you're at 100% of poverty level, you cannot buy because that's the law. 0 to 100%, you cannot buy on the exchange. The law is very clear.
I understand. Got to be more than 100%.
That's the reason the Biden and Pelosi groups have said we're going to change the law. For those people that are up to 138% of poverty level, they can buy on the exchange.
We're talking about able-bodied adults here. Let's be clear.
Adults.
That's
now,
the category.
So here's what would happen, just in a nutshell. They would buy a policy, and somebody's got to verify the income when they do this. And to do that, you're going to have all the information that you need. And they may get a tax bill at the end of the year. They may not. They may find out they got to pay some taxes for a change.
Yeah.
But you can put more people on, and those are the people that we normally say fall through the cracks. So in Mississippi, our criteria, this is not exact, but our criteria may be if you're single, you're probably not going to get Medicaid.
Right.
But if you're single and pregnant, that counts as two people. You get on Medicaid. Or if you're a a parent with a child, you're on Medicaid.
That's a coverage category.
So that's basically about 50% of the poverty level when you really sit down to it. So you've got people that fall through the cracks for various reasons that can't get, I don't say fall through the cracks is not right. They just don't qualify because of our rules and regulations. And that's the ones that the Biden administration is trying to cover.
Yeah.
About 250,000 people. Now, I will tell you, there are a lot of people that think we need to expand Medicaid, and that would include groups like economic groups and whatever. Even I'm to some degree, I kind of fall in that category because I can see it as a cost containment, but I can't make the numbers work like they ought to work.
I guess what I'm saying, excuse me, is that there are a large number, that 250,000 group.
You're talking about some megabucks.
But there are a large number of them whose income is above 100% of the federal poverty level, less than 138. They would qualify. They do qualify for subsidies and exchanges today. But yet what we hear out of Medicaid, staunch Medicaid proponents is they just don't have any coverage and no way to get any. That's not true exactly.
Well, there are not many people in that category, though, Gerard. When you look and say how many people actually between 100 and 138% that are not, they can't get on Medicaid anyway.
Yeah.
But how many of them are not on the exchange? We find that the people that are on the exchange, 97% of the people on the exchanges in Mississippi get some type of subsidy. That means they get a tax credit.
Sure.
And out of that group, a very large percent of them, I just don't have the percents with me today, fall in the category of 100% to 138.
Okay.
Probably somewhere in the category of 35,000. There's probably another 35 or 40,000 that could qualify. So we cover half of them. The other half is not covered.
Okay.
And why they're not on there is because they are the type people that may work 6 months out of the year. They may actually make more than 138% one year, and they may make less than that in another year, and they don't want to report, and they don't trust the government. They don't pay taxes anyway.
Well, but you're qualifying exchanges up to 400%.
Yeah, you are. But
an individual has $85,000 a year.
Yeah. Well, it's for four people.
For family of four, it's high, much higher.
Way over $100,000. And here the problem with that issue is that when you get above 250% of poverty level, the subsidies go way down.
Yeah. I understand. They
honestly,
phase out.
Those plans aren't worth a flip.
But they cap out at 9% of household income. But right now, those are enhanced under the temporary rules.
But when you get above 250% of poverty level, they're not as enhanced as much as we
I understand.
think. And number two, Gerard, those policies really, and I'm the insurance commissioner, I will tell you, they're not really good policies, but they are what they are. And, we had to approve the qualified health plans for them. We retained that right. We're one of the few states that did that. Thank God we did, because we'd be doing some things we shouldn't be doing. But the bottom line is, I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah. We got 9.3 million jobs available in this country. We have the lowest labor participation rate. We got plenty of jobs available. This is for able-bodied adults, meaning they can work.
Well, I don't know how many people in that category, and I'm not. Do you know?
I don't. Well, all the people say it's 250,000. 250,000 would receive Medicaid coverage if we expanded Medicaid, and the group that's not presently covered are able-bodied adults.
If they're healthy, they ought to be able to get a job. Look, we got an Amazon plant coming that's going to need a lot of people.
I'm well aware of it. I was involved in that.
I had to fight the issue over the fire truck where it needs to be. Just crazy stuff. And then you've got the issue in DeSoto County where you're going to have a large mix of that population that will go into Tennessee to work in those plants that have been built.
Well, you're right. And I'm talking about the one in Madison. We got 1,500, 12 to 1,500 employees they're looking for at an average pay of about $35 to $40,000. I think it's going to go up by the time.
If we can keep those guys happy, and Amazon does have a plan, but you got to remember that the corporations like Amazon and the other folks that come and talk to us about industry-type plans, that DOL is rule are not legal right now. So associated health plans is what we call them.
I know what you're talking about, scaled-down plans. Yeah.
Well, no, the AHPs are not scaled down.
No, they're not. The high deductible, high deductible plans.
High deductible plans don't work.
I got you. I hear you. All right.
Great
we
discussion.
Appreciate you coming in. Thank you,
Controversial.
Commissioner.
Good stuff to talk about.
Always good to see
Thank you, man.
We'll be back on midday. Stay with us.